Welcome to the Traffic and Pedestrian Safety Committee being held today, December 11th at 6 p.m. I would like to ask the Vice Chair to call to order.
Call the meeting to order and let's stand for the... I call the meeting to order and let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
So we'll go ahead and move on to item number 2. We'll begin with roll call. Vice Chair Kent Moriarty.
I'm here.
Member Crystal Pasco.
Present.
And we do have 2 members absent today, Member Ben Doyle and Chair Faith Dunham Sims. Okay. Next slide, please. We will be skipping the approval of minutes. Next slide. Would any of the committee members like to make any reports?
This isn't exactly a report, but I guess I just wanted to mention or repeat some of the things that were discussed at the last City Council meeting. Maybe you all already saw it, but just since this is the TAPS Commission, I thought I'd mention it because they were talking about transportation and pedestrian safety things. One of them was they're proposing some speed limit reductions for some segments on Pinole Valley Road and San Pablo Avenue. There was talk about a program to create creative sidewalks, crosswalks in Old Town. And there was a committee of a couple of council members, a subcommittee formed to do that. And they talked about, and this is actually in the active transportation plan draft, they talked about, there's the slip lane, also called a pork shop, sometimes at the intersection of San Pablo Avenue and Tennant. So if you're coming from the south, coming down into Pinole on San Pablo Avenue, and you turn right there at Tennant, you can. There's a slip lane. You don't have to stop at the light. And the problem with that is you could go around that corner without losing much speed, and then very quickly you're at the intersection of Tennant and Pear, and that's where a pedestrian was killed some time ago, and so this is an effort. But by making that slip lane only for buses, that would mean car traffic would necessarily have to slow down a bit, and you'd effectively be reducing the speeds at which cars are traveling at that intersection, that crosswalk. So those are just, if you have any other questions, you can look at the minutes or the video from that last council meeting, but I just wanted to bring it up here because that's all related to this group.
Member Crystal, do you have any committee reports or announcements for today?
No.
Okay. We're moving on to the next slide, citizens to be heard. These are for items not on the agenda, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Do we have any public comment? So no public comment. We'll go ahead and move on to item 6, traffic and pedestrian safety issues. Next slide, please. I do want to remind the public that we do have our traffic calming policy that can be found on the web link in the slide being showed today, or also in the agenda. Next slide, please. List of traffic issues discussed and status. For the full list of traffic issues previously discussed, please visit our TAPS page at our Pinole website. It'll have all the updates and information regarding any past discussions that were brought to TAPS. Next slide, please. Any issues relating to Caltrans right-of-way, I just want to remind the public that the City of Pinole has no jurisdiction over a Caltrans property. So any reports that you'd like to make, please contact Caltrans or visit the website shown on the screen. Next slide, please. We're going to item number 7, staff updates. First, we want to talk about any new development projects. Right now, if you're interested in learning any new, about any new development projects, please go ahead and visit the planning website. The link is shared on the slide and is also listed on the agenda. Next slide, please. Item number 7 is the active transportation plan. I do want to remind the public that we do have a website that's listed on the agenda as well as the slide. And today we wanted to have a short discussion, a discussion regarding any comments or feedback from the public or the committee. I do want to note that the draft is complete and has been distributed for comments. And I also do want to note that the ATP is a result of support for all needs for residents, workers, and visitors in the community that have envisioned a transportation network that serves the public regardless of mode, age, or ability. Many residents have voiced an interest for an improved pedestrian and bicycle facility, and many have already walked to and from their destinations throughout the city. I do want to note that the purpose of this plan is to establish a long-term vision for improving walking, biking, and any other non-motorized travel here in Pinole, and that the plan is designed to provide a framework for projects, programs, and policies that enhance the connectivity for pedestrians and bicyclists throughout the city, connecting residents to schools, transit, recreational facilities, services, and employment. I do want to open the floor to the committee to have an open discussion regarding this draft. And I do want to note that we do have our consultant on the line that can answer any questions regarding this draft. Thank you.
Did you? I just had some general thoughts. Sometimes when I would read the comments that people made on the website that the city provided for the public to weigh in, I would get discouraged because it feels like a divisive issue, an active transportation plan. And although when we went to one of the public workshops in person, it was much less that way. It's when I say divisive, it feels sometimes like there are some people that say, like, just fix potholes. This is anti-car, and they feel like an active transportation is taking away what car needs, or taking away resources from cars and keeping potholes from getting fixed. I don't really see it that way. I see it as more a way for to just improve transportation and livability in Pinole, to do things that provide some traffic calming, but not keep cars from functioning, and make the town more livable in terms of just people being out, walking, riding their bikes, kind of enjoying the community. And I see that a lot more in Old Town now on weekends than we did maybe 5 years ago. And I was really encouraged at the public workshops that there wasn't that kind of divisive bicyclists against car drivers kind of mentality. It seemed like most people were genuinely wanting to see how this could benefit the city where we live. I had only one specific thing that I was concerned about. I worry that this plan is only as good as the things that actually get carried out. Like if the plan has good ideas and they never happen, then it doesn't have much value. I was looking specifically at the proposals for, where does it start? On the bike section, it starts on page 46. Do we have the ability to show that? Oh. So there's a number of concepts, cross sections for different roads, Appian Way, Fitzgerald, Pinole Valley Road, San Pablo Avenue, Tennant, Terra Hills. And I think all these are important, but the ones that I kind of focused on because they're the most complex were Pinole Valley Road and San Pablo Avenue. They're complex, but they're also important, and they're called out in the county bike ped plan as being areas that need bicycle infrastructure. But the proposals for both Pinole Valley and San Pablo Avenue are for a two-way bike track, which means you don't see it that often. I think the only place I've seen it is in Berkeley, but you have a two-way bike lane on one side of the street. If you can envision that, I wish we had a diagram up, but maybe I'm just I haven't really used those much, and so maybe I'm just afraid of that concept because I haven't used it, but from what I understand, that concept isn't really compatible with a street with a lot of driveways and intersections. You can see why, if you envision it, if normally you're coming out of a driveway or going into an intersection in your car or walking or bike or whatever, and you're going to look left, you're not used to looking right, and so you're setting up possible accidents. There are a number of other issues. If it's a short section, if you have two-way travel on one side of the street and then the two-way bike track ends, then you've got to cross the street to be in the normal travel lane direction. I feel like if we were to do this, if this were to actually happen, I think it probably wouldn't, because I think there'd be a lot of pushback, but I think you'd be creating a more dangerous situation than what we have now. And so I guess I'm pushing back against that and wondering if the consultant could say something about it. I think maybe the reason that this became the preferred option is because it got less resistance from community feedback than some of the other concepts, but I think that it got less pushback, not because it was a good concept for bicycles, but because it had less impact on cars. But I don't think we would ever want to do something only because it has less impact for cars when the intention is to help bicyclists, but maybe good intentions would result in bad consequences. That was the thing I felt most strongly about, so I didn't want to take a bunch of time to give my opinions on other parts of it.
So I do have our consultant from GHD here that can probably provide any possible comments regarding Pinole Valley Road's concept plan. Colin, are you on the other line?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are definitely valid concerns, and I too was surprised that it wound up being the top choice. I think there are the segments of Pinole Valley Road that are described here are there are relatively few driveways on the segments in that area. The driveways tend to be on the cul-de-sacs on that side of the street. So that's one point in its favor. This type of treatment would have been unheard of 10 or 15 years ago, but in recent years, cities have installed two-way bikeways similar to this, including Sacramento has several. So they're becoming more common. They were definitely unheard of in the past. And then in terms of the concern about driveways, the segments of San Pablo change. The characteristics of San Pablo tend to change quite a bit from segment to segment, but the segments we're focusing on near Tenant generally don't have driveways on that side, on that portion of San Pablo. But it is definitely true that if you had a treatment that ended, you would have to there would have to be a way for cyclists in one of those directions to cross over to the other side of the street if there was no longer a two-way cycle track.
I worry that, so on San Pablo, it's a pretty short section from Fernandez to Pinole Valley Road. And so if you were doing it the way you were supposed to, I guess you'd be, if the cycle track was on the opposite side of the road you were traveling on, you'd be in the traffic lane, then you'd have to cross over the street and get in the cycle track for the short distance, and then you'd cross over the street again and get in the travel lane. And I think what would happen is people wouldn't do it, and then car drivers would see the bicyclists not using the cycle track, and they get annoyed at them. And so you'd end up causing more tension between different road users by having that type of infrastructure. Is the reason we ended up with this as a preferred concept just because it got less resistance or less negative comments from the public than some of the other ones, like a road diet?
Well, I know it received the most positive comments.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was that specific, but in looking through the comments, it did score the highest, based on the comments received.
Yeah. I still kind of feel like it got positive comments from the perspective of a driver that felt like it won't impact me as a driver, so I like it best. But it's not. I wonder if it really got positive comments from the perspective of a person that would use a two-way cycle track.
Crystal, do you have any comments or questions regarding the ATP?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. First off, I just want to say thanks for the opportunity to weigh in and review the plan. I learned a lot about transportation in our city, and also just different plans and policy documents that are that were referenced here in this plan, and what our city's priorities are. I have a couple of questions and comments that I think are different in nature than my fellow committee member. So the first one is just a little bit more of a level setting type of question or clarifying question. So starting on page 15, it talks about the goals, objectives, and strategies of the plan. And then in page 21, we talk about recommendations, and I was a little bit confused about what the difference is. So in the recommendations sections, I feel like a lot of the focus was on various projects that could improve transportation in our city. However, there were strategies that are noted as objectives in a previous section that I felt like could also really complement some of the more infrastructural things that were recommended. So what's the difference between the goals and objectives, which to me honestly feel like recommendations that are non-infrastructure based, and then the recommendation section?
And I'll just chime in real quick that the goals and objectives and strategies should be broad, but inform the selection of recommendations. So the recommendations should support the goals and objectives. For example, there's goals and objectives that talk about improving safety. And there's also references to providing low stress facilities for cyclists. And so the recommended bikeway improvements are all geared towards lowering the level of stress for cyclists, but by providing buffers between the bicycle lane and the adjacent car traffic lanes.
Got it. Yeah, I think like when I look at these objectives, a lot of these, really speak to kind of the work that I do. And so when I don't see them explicitly noted in the recommendations section, I feel like then they're just intentions, like they're just really nice ideas that would be great to have, but they're not, hard and fast recommendations that then, when you look at this document and you think about what the council is going to be approving, they will really look at recommendations, right? And so I think it would be great to kind of merge the two in some way, so that way our recommendations include both infrastructure-based and non-infrastructure-based. Like there are some really great ones in here, like bicycle safety education, supporting safe routes to schools, all things that, obviously I'm a really big advocate for and have done, work around. So that's just one comment I'll make there about that section versus the recommendations section. And then sort of more globally, the way I read this document, it felt more of a document that really focused on walking and biking. But when you read, the other plans and policies that are noted of the city, they talk a lot about carpooling and vanpooling and transit use. And I felt like those things weren't really talked about much in the rest of the document. And I feel like it's a little bit of a missed opportunity to consider a transportation network that doesn't include some of these other modes of what I would consider active or shared transportation. So it'd be great to kind of see more of that infused throughout the document. So just say that's more of a global comment. And then in terms of considerations for equity, how are we making sure that our transportation network really supports the most disadvantaged communities in our city? We talk a little bit about, I think we talk a little bit about that, and I'm not recalling the section at the moment, but how are we making sure that, our sidewalks are accessible for those in mobility devices who use wheelchairs? I know, like in my neighborhood, there are several crosswalks that don't have curb cuts, and so I could, and I have transit stops in my neighborhood, and so I could imagine folks in wheelchairs having to go into the street in and out of driveways just to get off the sidewalk and onto like a bus stop. So, how are we addressing some of the basic transportation access issues in our city? I would love to see more equity considerations like that. And then this is more of like a sort of a process question. Let me actually get to that slide. I think it was towards the end around project priority evaluation. This is on page 57. For equity, it talks about free or reduced meal program, and this is getting a little bit in the weeds, but I did actually have a question about this. So it looks like it's being used as a criteria for determining a project's equity merit. And in the state of California now, we have a universal meals program. So all students who attend a public school in California are entitled to a free breakfast and lunch. And so the free or reduced meal program, the data that's produced from that isn't actually as reliable because it's now self-reported by school districts, because now every student is, guaranteed a meal, 2 meals. And so I'm wondering if there's any other source of data that we could use kind of, maybe to sort of supplement that, to understand equity and how it relates to student poverty. And maybe that's not a question that can be answered tonight, but I'm really curious how we would maybe use a different data source for that particular equity consideration.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so many of these projects, the city would likely look at grant sources to fund them, and many of the grant sources place an emphasis on equity considerations, and so they often define equity based on Cal Enviro screen is commonly used, and so we could update this. Based on the most recent language in those grant programs.
Yeah, those were my comments.
So we'll go ahead and move on to public comment, if that is okay with the vice chair. Okay. So it looks like we have one public comment, phone number ending in 5748. Please feel free to unmute yourself and state your name for the record. Looks like there might be some technical issues. If your number is ending in 5748, please go ahead and unmute yourself, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You do have 3 minutes, and your time will start now.
Yes, my name's Anthony, longtime resident of Pinole Valley, nearly 50 years. I have to take a sidebar. I had difficulty at the start of the meeting. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Your number is ending.
Hello?
Please go ahead and unmute yourself, please.
Okay. If your number is ending in 5748, it appears that you might have a TV in the background. We would like to ask that you mute the television, and then we can continue.
Hello, can you hear me now?
With your phone call. Yes, we can hear you.
I'm sorry. I was having some technical difficulties here, and then earlier in the meeting, before I asked the question regarding the ATP, early in the meeting, I wasn't, and maybe some others weren't able to get into the public comment fast enough, literally. You know, normally at the meetings, they introduce the public comment by reading the access for transparency and you know, equal fairness and ability in a balanced way, that the public can either phone in, appear in public, or go on Zoom hybrid. But none of that was done in the beginning of the meeting, and then I had trouble getting the right ID number. So by the time I punched in the ID number, you didn't even want to wait a minute. A lot of times they give the viewing public a minute to call in, but you seem to have a habit there of running your meeting. Maybe the other person does it the same way, but not on the planning commission and not on the city council meeting, of just, you know, rushing through the agenda, going down the list, so you can get out of there within an hour, which has been the case with very few or little public comments. So if people don't have the ability to show up in person live and or call in on the access number with the proper time, in the proper time order, and or have the ability to access the agenda packet with online, be them seniors like myself or other people, they're SOL, you know. So it's just a side comment there, and I find that similar applies to the
You
people
do
that try
have
to
30
call in
seconds left.
or get into your program to get a response under the Brown Act. They should be directing their questions to the staff at hand, or try to at least say it'll be discussed at a future agenda item, if not for an open discussion. But none of that's been practiced with the TAPs recently, since Mr. Mishra left, and even before that. So I think they need to look at some of those administrative things. And I wanted to ask with the ATV, it'd be nice if you put up some kind of chart, like Mr. Moriarty said, what was the results of these studies or these surveys? We would like to see and know. Not everybody has access to the agenda packet and see what it is, you know, and with the surveys and what we're talking about, and have some kind of visible outline on television so people can follow you. You're not just listen to you
Thank
run
you.
it through.
Your
And a lot
time
of
is
times
up.
your audio visuals aren't clear.
So in regards to the comments from caller 5748, I do want to just note that all the public comments for the ATP have been posted on the Walk and Roll Pinole website that is available to the public. So there is a interactive map that shows some of the comments of what residents have asked for, as well as comments to the plan concepts that have been listed in the ATP draft. Okay. Do we have any additional comments from the public? So we do have one comment in the public. If you'd like to turn on your microphone, feel free to provide those comments.
Thank you. My name is Officer Eubanks. I'm with the Pinole Police Department, and my concern is for transportation and the safety of the school kids on man. So I'm looking at page 47 for the proposed future concept of Appian Way between Belden Court and Mann Drive. And my concern is right now, we currently have a huge traffic issue during school. And the majority of the kids that I have seen in my morning hours patrolling there are not actively walking to school. They are being dropped off by their family, which is why we're experiencing congestion on Appian and on Man. And right now we have a lot of traffic congestion with the 2 lanes of southbound Appian approaching Man. We have a huge traffic concern. So I am concerned with the future concept of turning that 2-lane road into one and then creating a center turn lane. A good portion of Appian from Belden to Man on the west side of the road is a large hillside. So the use of a center turn lane, there's nowhere to turn on that side of the road. And then in future concepts, when there is the housing development on the east side of Appian, that turn pocket would be having them, turn across the lane and into a home division. I just don't see this concept as a good way to have traffic calming in an area where we already are experiencing heavy traffic congestion. Putting it down to one drive lane does not seem like a good plan. If anything, I would say that the plan or the future concept of Pinole Valley Road, where they have the 2-way bikeway on one side of the road and they still leave it open to 2 lanes, is a better fit for that area, as bicyclists would be able to travel both north and southbound of Appian on the east side, and then all the traffic on the south side of Appian approaching the middle school would be better. I don't see how turning Appian right there into one lane is going to be good for our city or for the residents who live in that area. And like I said, most of the children, I know we're trying to promote more walking and pedestrian and bicyclists, but that's a quick on and off for families who are just dropping their children off and then immediately getting onto the freeway to go to their respective workplaces. So I would really like to see that concept change. And I did make comments when that survey was sent out about this issue, because I'm very adamant that this is not a good proposed concept for that area. We are experiencing heavy congestion there right now with the 2 lanes.
And part of what this concept would address is one of the comments we received from people. There are many concerns about speeds, and reducing the number of lanes would help to reduce the speeds on Appian. Currently the traffic volumes really aren't that high. It's a level of traffic that would normally be accommodated by 1 lane per direction. And what tends to occur is, for 23 hours out of the day, there's no congestion, right? And then there's that school drop-off period. And so there's some short-term queuing when those drop-offs occur. But for most of the day and on the weekends, it's a lot of extra lanes that and when there's extra lanes provided, that tends to result in excess speeds. So that's the key goal in terms of this concept is related to that.
Okay. Thank you, Colin. Do we have any, we do want to open the floor again just one more time for any public comment. And if there's no comments, we will go ahead and move on to the next item.
I just wanted to thank Colin for being here. I felt it made it a lot more constructive to be able to get his response directly to some of our questions and concerns. So it felt productive. So thanks for being part of the meeting.
And before we move on to the next item, can we talk a little bit about what happens now? So it sounds like potentially the public comment period was extended to the end of the month. Is that confirmed? But beyond December, what does January look like? What is then the next step for this process?
Yes, so public comment has been extended to the end of December, and we hope to receive more comments regarding this traffic active transportation plan. The next step after we've received the comments by that deadline is we'll compile all those comments and send them over to our consultant to compile the final draft plan. Once that final draft plan has been completed, it'll come back to the TAPS committee for support, or if you have additional questions regarding that plan. Once we move on from there, then we hope to move it forward to council for their approval.
It sounds like our January meeting might be too soon to expect an action from us. Is that correct? Are we actually looking more like February, or I guess it maybe depends on the number of comments?
So that's still to be determined. It all depends on when we can get that draft back. We're hoping to get that to this committee in February or March. Okay.
Thank you.
So we can go ahead. Sorry. Is that all the comments that we have from the committee? Okay, so we can go ahead and move on to the next slide, which is maintenance service requests. I do want to let the public know that you can contact us via email or through our website. On our website, we do have a report a problem button on the top right of your web browser on the screen where you can report any maintenance related issues here in Pinole. Next slide, please. If you have any questions or concerns and you would like to reach out to the TAPS committee, feel free to take a look at the contacts and send them an email, or you may contact Public Works directly. Next slide. And then Vice Chair Kent Moriarty, would you like to adjourn the meeting?
Yeah, let's adjourn until our next meeting on January 8th, 2025.